Hi, and welcome back to the Cluttered Workbench. My name is Dave, and I had a request from a friend of mine for a inexpensive kit to start soldering. He has a son that wants to get involved in STEM, and electronics is a good way to get started. So I purchased this kit on Amazon for about $25. It's made by a company called Plusivo. It's Chinese, but it has a lot of tools that you might need to get started in electronics and building kits. So let's take a look at it. Comes in a nice leather case, and it has some instructions. You can get your free copy of Mastering the Art of Soldering. You just go to their website, books.plusivo.com, put the claim code in, and you can download the PDF file. And then there's some instructions on how to assemble the stand for the soldering iron. That's nice. Let's open up the kit and see what we have inside. Again, this is only 25 bucks, and I'm not expecting miracles. And yep, there's a lot of good stuff in here. We have a multimeter. We have some soldering paste is what they call it. It's actually flux. Heat shrink tubing in a variety of colors and sizes. We have the soldering iron stand. Let's take a look at it. Comes with threaded insert, threaded rod with two, looks like plastic bushings on it. So one would go towards this nut, and one would go towards the other nut. Let's take that one off the thread. And where is the base for it? Sponge to clean the iron tip off. There's the base. Let's get the multimeter out of the way. And you would put the stand in there like that. Put the washer back on the other side. Hopefully you can see that okay. Put this on. Pretty straightforward. And I believe it comes with a little wrench. And where is that? There it is. Comes with a wrench to tighten the nut. It's not the best in the world, but it does the job. Get that square. This is an excellent starter kit to get involved in electronics, especially to build kits, but it does have some few flaws on it. So we'll put that there. There's the sponge. Of course it doesn't fit the holder. Put that off to the side. Comes with looks like pair of tweezers. You have your 45-degree angled, and you have a pair of straight tip. These are ESD safe. Yeah, they're marked ESD 11. This is ESD 15. Yeah, fairly sharp tips. I prefer to use stainless steel ones for the work I do. But these will help you out when you're working on small projects. I've got a couple of itty bitty screwdrivers. One looks like a number 0 Phillips, and the other one is maybe a millimeter chisel tip. Hopefully you can see those. I'm looking through the camera viewfinder. I can't see shit. Some no-name mystery solder. I don't know if this is lead-free or leaded. I prefer to use lead, but I'll test it out here in a few minutes. Just feed that through. Lead-free is a pain in the ass to work with, especially if you're a beginner. Needs a higher heat range, and I don't know. Lead-based solder works so much better. And looks like a multi-bit screwdriver. These you can buy at the dollar store. This one only has 3 different bits. You get a Phillips number 0 and a Phillips number 1 and a standard chisel tip or flat blade screwdriver. Correct term is flat blade. Yeah, that'll work. If you get involved in electronics deeper and deeper, you'll end up buying a good quality screwdriver set from like iFixit. I love their products, but everything I buy here is I buy myself. It comes on out of my paycheck. Okay, I'm not sponsored. I don't shill for anybody. Everything I buy is mine, and I can bash on it if I want to. So, little multi-bit screwdriver, that's handy. Standard utility knife with break-off blades. Good for cutting open boxes, doing that stuff. They call this high-quality paste. pH neutral, non-corrosive, smooth soldering surface. This is rosin core flux. And we'll go ahead and use their included knife. Not very sharp. That sucks. Yeah, this is a rosin-based flux, it looks like. Get the lid off. Yeah, it's a rosin flux. You'll learn to love flux when you're doing electronic soldering because it helps the joints flow smoother and cleans off some corrosion. And it's a requirement. Now we have, this is a solder sucker, and yeah, it's cheaply made, but it'll work. You cock it, and then you would take your soldering iron, heat up the solder joint, bring it over, hit the button, and it would suck up some of the solder. They work very well. There's better alternatives out there, which I'll probably do in a later video. But yeah, it'll get the bulk of the solder off a joint, and then you can use something else to clean it up. Then we have a cheap ass wire stripper. This has either a 110 or a 66 punch down blade on it. This is made for Cat 5 or Cat 6 network cabling as a stripper. You put the cable in there, let it go, spin it around, and it would cut the sheathing off or the insulation off the wire. These are really not wire strippers for conventional wire. You're better off getting something better, say a set of these. These are dedicated wire strippers. This is made by Klein. Cuts anywhere from 30 gauge to 20 gauge wire. That's what I use in electronics a lot. You just open it up, put the wire in there, clamp it down, pull it off. Bingo. These cost about $25. You can buy them at Home Depot. They carry the Klein tools. These are made for electricians, and they're a well-known brand name. And we've got, ooh, look at that, proto board. This is simple strip board, otherwise known as proto board. It looks like it's through-hole plated. You can practice your soldering skills on this, but I would recommend buying a kit, and I'll explain that later. But yeah, that'll work. We have a pair of cutters. These are actually not too bad. They are diagonal flush cuts. That's what you want to use when you're doing kits and doing electronics. You want a nice flush cut. Diagonal cutters won't give you a nice clean cut all the way down at the bottom of the circuit board. So yeah, these will work. You want to buy more than one. I have several. One of my favorites are these right here. They cost about $8 on Amazon. They're Egan, I-A-G-A-N. Very nice sharp pointed tip. Extremely flush at the base. Got a spring loaded to open them back up again. Well worth the money. But you'll want to have more than one. You want to have say these are CHP. They're distributed under the Hakko name. Well respected. You can buy 3 of these for less than $20, and you have one for general cutting and hacking and chopping up boards, and then 1 or 2 for the fine work where the jaws will stay sharp. But if you're doing general hacking and stuff, you know, these here already have gaps in them because I've been chopping on boards. What else we have? These are the leads for the meter. We'll go over that in a minute. We have some solder wick, 2mm width. Also, this is braided copper, and this is used to remove solder. Say you make a joint and it's got a little bit too much solder on it. You would take your soldering iron. We'll use my Hakko here. Put this on the joint, and then take your soldering iron over the top, and the heat will just melt the solder and suck it up into the wick. And then when you're done, you just cut off the end. Now, I don't know if this has flux in it, but it says low residue, so maybe it does have some flux. If it doesn't have flux, you need to just get some liquid flux, put it on there, or some paste flux, and it'll help pull the solder out of the joints. Good stuff. And this is the iron. Now, this soldering iron has a little temperature control gauge. It goes from, looks like 200 degrees Celsius to 450 degrees Celsius. This is not a temperature controlled iron. By turning this as just a variable resistor or potentiometer. And then inside here there's a triac. So this is a wattage controlled iron and not a temperature controlled iron. I've already taken one of these apart. There's no thermocouple or temperature sensing in the tip. So it's just guessing based on what you set it at. It's only sending so many volts to the triac, and it just wattage wise, and it says, okay, I need to run at 10 watts instead of 50 watts. Now they claim this is a 60 watt iron. It's got this little plastic cover on it. Conical tip, which is standard. I don't use the conical tip, especially on through-hole components. I tend to use a chisel tip or a flat-bladed screwdriver tip. But to change it is no big deal. You just, oh, this is really cheap. Holy crap. This one's on there good. There we go. Unscrew this. Pull the tip off. And this is using the Seiko T18 tip. Been around for years. This is a ceramic heating element. You just slide the tip over. Put it back on. And screw that back on. I wouldn't recommend this for heavy duty electronics use because this has got a US plug, hot neutral. They're not even polarized, so it doesn't matter which way it goes into the outlet or the receptacle. No grounding. So this is not ESD safe, so there's a good possibility of electrostatic discharge because there's no way for the static electricity to run off the ground. But yes, it works. Comes with a set of tips, and you've got this weird knife blade tip that I never use. Looks like a hoof tip, a chisel tip, and two more conical tips, a very fine one. That's great for surface mount work. I prefer using a hook tip. But yeah, these will work. These are cheap. They'll probably last 5 or 6 months if you take good care of them. And there's 3 rolls of electrical tape, and this is probably not UL listed or anything like that. And it's some cheap made in Hong. Jin Hin Hong. I wouldn't use this for any major electrical problems. I wouldn't use it in my household wiring or even automotive because this is probably PVC tape, and I'm a bit of an elitist when it comes to electrical tape. I use the 3M Scotch 33. The Super 33, that stuff is awesome. It's a good quality vinyl. It lasts forever. It doesn't leave a sticky residue. And it comes with a couple of bundles of, looks like 24 gauge wire. Really don't see a use for that. You can buy cheaper wire. But if you're in a bind and had to fix something, that would be perfect. Let's take a look at this iron. I'm going to use conical tip. I'm going to get this crap out of the way. Cover over here, take these tips out of the way. I'll use the built-in holder. I really don't like this holder for the fact that it should be the other way around. Narrow end should be up to hold the iron in place, and the big end should be down to keep the tip out of the way, because put it in there like that and the tip sticks way the heck out. That can burn shit on your desk. But yeah. Hold on a second. I'm going to get the pad wet, and I will use some distilled H2O. The reason I use distilled is regular tap water or drinking water or spring water that you buy at the grocery store has minerals in it. Squeeze out the rest of the water over here. And I don't like using the sponge anymore when I clean my soldering iron tip. I tend to use the brass wool. Where did it go? Now screw it. So let me, now before, I'm going to use the solder that came with it. And the flush cuts. Like so. This iron looks like the tip has been pre-tinned. But this is the way I was trained when I went to electronics school, is to wrap the tip in solder. Like so, before you turn it on the first time. And let's cut that off. Hopefully you can see this. I'm looking through the handy cam screen. Now I'm using a soldering mat here. This is like $3 on Amazon. It's a silicone mat, so the solder's not going to hurt anything. It's high temperature. Plug it in and we'll set it for 350 degrees centigrade. See how long it takes to heat up. Based on experience, these irons don't takes about a minute for it to heat up, so sorry for the boredom. Do 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 do. Yeah. Kick in the Jeopardy theme. And it's starting to smoke. And we are getting melty action. There it goes. And I just don't use this sponge anymore because it shocks the tip too much. You got a hot iron and then you shock it with cold water. It creates microfractures in the tip. So I've gone to the brass wool, which you'll see over here, and in my Heiko system. And we'll tin it a few more times. Yeah, it's a usable iron. Hang on one second. Let me This is my cheap rip-off thermocouple that checks soldering iron temperature. So I'm going to turn it on and I'll get the iron out of the way here. Let me zoom in just a hair. Right now it's saying, oops, sorry about that. Zoom back up. It's saying 25.7 degrees centigrade in my workshop, which is about 75 degrees. Let's check how good this temperature is now. Again, it's set at 350 degrees centigrade. We'll put some solder on the tip and we will put it here on the thermocouple. Try that again. And it's a little bit short. It's showing about 327, 328 degrees centigrade. It's not bad. Some of these overshoot and they're like 400, 500 degrees centigrade. Give it a little more solder. Actually, this isn't quite good, 345 degrees centigrade, so this is fairly accurate for being a wattage controlled iron and not a temperature controlled iron. So, overall that part's good. Let me unplug the iron and I'll leave that. Good idea when you're done with the iron. Put a little blob of solder on it while it cools off. Let's take a look at the multimeter. Zoom back out a little bit. If I can find my zoom control. Sorry, a new camera. This is a little Plusivo, and it's a manual ranging. Already has batteries installed, it looks like. And yep, this is a manual ranging. It's got voltage, a battery tester, current, continuity, resistance, and volts DC and volts AC. Okay, not bad. It's got a batteries already installed, so you just pull out the zip tab. Perfect. It's got a little side stand. Let's turn it. Nice backlight. Okay, looks like it's a 2000 count meter, so it's not super, it's accurate, but it doesn't have much resolution. Let's take a look at the test leads that come with it. PVC leads, so they're not really flexible. Sorry about that, I'm trying to keep it in frame. It's got little protective boots on the jack, so you got to take those off first. Well, that one's stuck in there good. Okay, so we'll put red jack there. This is common, this is always black. And let's check its continuity. Oh, look, it's got little covers on the probe tips. Fairly, they're not super sharp. I mean, these are not probe masters or flukes. Rated 1000 volts max, 10 amps. Yeah, I'll take that with a grain of salt. This does not have any third-party certification on it, so I definitely wouldn't be plugging this into the wall. Current 10 amps max unfused. Yeah, that's a danger zone. This would be perfect for the bench though. 600 volts AC DC, 200 milliamps max. That's probably not fused either. So if you're farting around on your bench and doing low voltage stuff like, you know, USB power supplies, things like that, this would be fine. Anything below 30 volts DC. But yeah, I wouldn't be going jamming this into your wall outlet because it'd probably blow up. Let's try continuity. Oops. Oh, that's horrible. That is definitely not a latching continuity test. You want probes aren't bad. Let's let me clean the tips off because they probably got production crap on them. I'm just going to use some 99% isopropyl alcohol. Stuff is great. You can get a safety dispenser. These are cheap. And I'm using what's called Kim wipes. These are low lint. You can buy a case of these for dirt cheap on Amazon. It's like 10 bucks for 3 boxes or something like that. They're nice because they don't leave lint. We'll do a little isopropyl on them. Get production crap. Well, that's still janky as shit. But yeah, if you were gonna get started in electronics, this little multimeter would be fine. But I'm gonna try something here. Change these inexpensive. Yeah. The whole kit was 25 bucks. You think this multimeter costs more than like $3? And these leads are what, you know, a buck? Let's try these leads. Now these are Probe Master. The leads themselves cost almost as much as the kit. These leads run about, oh, they don't even fit in the jacks. Well, let's try it anyways. Oh, what a difference. You can buy these from Probe Master direct for $16 plus shipping. You can also find them on Amazon. They'll take a cheap meter and make it a good meter just because of the quality of the leads. I mean, I even use these on my Fluke, even though I got Fluke leads. And the accessories that come with them, you can buy them separately, or you can buy like a master kit for 50 bucks that has all kinds of accessories. And that these tips are extremely sharp, and you want a good sharp tip if you're working on an electronic circuit board that has conformal coatings, because these will poke right through the coatings on there, get right down to the circuit. And these are comfortable. They got nice fat finger guards so your fingers don't slip off and get into the hot zone. They're made in America. That's one of the biggest things I have, as I love to buy American made products because I live in the United States and I support my country. So this little multimeter, not that bad. It just has a not so latching power or continuity test, but the main drawback is these leads that were included. Now if you get involved in electronics and building kits, I strongly recommend for beginners the Elenco kits, because they have everything laid out in basic terms and all the components are labeled so that you know what they are. And for example, hold on a second, I'm going to put these back in the box. I might give this kit away actually to my neighbor. He's got a young kid, well, he's about 12 and hankering to get started in electronics, but this won't go to waste. But if you want to, you know, get started in a basic kit, this is an Elenco component for a solder practice kit. R1, it says it's 100 ohms, 5% tolerance, quarter watt. Capacitor, 10 microfarad, 2 of them. C2. They make it very easy to put the kits together, and their instruction manual says, you know, this is the purpose of the kit. You can make little, they've got them anywhere from building your own little power supply to a multimeter kit. They've got an analog one, which I have over here that I built a while back. This is an Elenco analog multimeter. It's nice. It's got the mirrored, it has the mirror on there to correct for parallax error. It's a nice little kit to build. It has a little transistor tester. Yeah, whatever. Fun kit to build. It works well. The leads suck, like most kits. You can always buy better leads. And here's the practice board, circuit board. Well designed. I was testing out different types of solder on it, on the practice pads. And you just put the components in there and solder them, and you learn basically how to solder. And it's got a few more components. I don't know what the hell I did with them. But you can also go on Amazon or eBay and you can build one of these little inexpensive multi-vibrator circuits. It's 2 transistors, 2 resistors, a couple of capacitors, and it makes the LEDs blink. Kind of like a railroad crossing. It's called a wigwag. Very simple kit. Works, you know, good soldering practice. This one doesn't work because I decided to pump 30 volts through it and blew something up. I think I took out the transistors. Uses a 9014 PNP transistor, I think. Maybe it's an NPN. And but they're fun. You can buy 10 of these for like less than $10 or less than $1 each for the kits. So if you screw one up, you can try another one. And I'm also going to test this solder to see if it's lead free or leaded. I prefer, and especially if you're new to the game, is to use a lead-based solder, and I'll do another video on that later, because the lead-based solder has a lower melting point. It's easier to work with. It flows really nice, and if you're using a good quality solder, it's just pleasant to work with. If you're using some no-name shit like this and it doesn't flow right, and you're like, what the hell's going on? My circuits aren't working because it hasn't flowed correctly through the joint. Yeah, there's a problem. Well, anyways, thanks for watching. I'll be posting another video here in the next day or two about solder and good solder points, and if my wife would keep slamming doors around the house. Thank you all, and have a great day.